Custom PC builds are not usually known for their subtlety. RGB LEDs have become as much a part of the aesthetic of a desktop PC as windowed side panels and PSU shrouds. But there's something to be said for a quiet, understated, minimalist approach. For my latest project, I decided that my new editing/gaming rig would be something I haven't put together in over a decade. A zero RGB build. Before I get into talking about the components behind this PC, I first want to thank this video's sponsor, Flexispot. They contacted me a few weeks ago to ask if I'd like to try out their new E7 Pro Premium Standing Desk and C7 Ergonomic Office Chair, and of course I jumped at the chance. They offer a range of desktop sizes, colours and finishes to choose from, or you can buy the legs on their own if you have something more exotic in mind. I went with the 80 by 140cm black top with a smooth finish, as this will be a nice subtle aesthetic change without being a radical departure from my usual style, and will perfectly complement my new minimalist PC. The legs are adjustable from 63.5 to 128.5cm in height, can support up to 160 kilos in weight, and the dual motors can smoothly adjust the height at a rate of 4cm per second. I've been using the motorized adjustments on a daily basis, making small adjustments to the height to suit my typing experience, or just to scoot my chair further under the desk. You can even use it to work standing up, to help break up the monotony of sitting down all day. I tried it once and had a trauma flashback to my 20 years working in retail, so trigger warning, I guess. Despite supporting a full PC setup, it's remarkably stable and wobble-free even while moving. There are a bunch of accessories available, from monitor arms and stands to power strips and accessory drawers to keep all your stuff. Flexispot were also kind enough to provide their C7 ergonomic office chair. I've never been one for traditional gaming chairs, but I've also never really forked out on a real quality office chair before either. So this is an absolute game changer for me. It's fully adjustable as you'd expect, with forward and backward tilt, adjustable headrest, self-adjusting lumbar support, breathable mesh material, and optional footrest for kicking back in some long gaming sessions. As someone who suffered a herniated disc a few years back, I appreciate a good supportive chair, and honestly, I don't think I've ever sat in something quite as good and supportive as this before. Check out the C7 office chair, E7 Pro Premium Standing Desk, and the rest of the Flexispot range at the link in the description. Plenty of PC cases come without RGB fans, and even if they do, there are a ton of great non-illuminated fans out there, or you can just unplug the RGB header, so you're kind of free to go with any case you like here. I went with the Fractal North, mainly because I like the style, and Fractal cases are usually terrifically well made, and the North definitely meets my expectations. It came preloaded with two front 140mm fans, and has space for top and rear fans if you need more cooling. This is the tempered glass version, but again, if you prefer extra ventilation, there's a version with a mesh side panel. Onto the innards of the build, and if you're a regular to the channel, you're already familiar with most of these. The Ryzen 9 7900X3D is a great middle ground between pure productivity and pure gaming performance. With 12 Zen 4 cores, it's a hefty upgrade over my old 8-core Ryzen 7 5700X for video editing in DaVinci Resolve and making thumbnails in Adobe Photoshop, which is the bulk of what I do with my PC, but for those occasions where I want to play some games, one half of those cores are parked while the others, which have access to the 3D cache, take over. It's being kept cool under a Thermalright Phantom Spirit 120mm dual tower CPU cooler, which is a very highly rated cooler by many channels on YouTube, and although there are many variants of the PS120 out there, most of them have zero RGB. In fact, no LEDs of any kind. The CPU is installed on an Asus ROG Strix X670EF motherboard, and I had mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, it has great specs and future compatibility with at least the next generation of CPUs. Being the E variant means that it has Gen 5 PCI Express support for when that becomes a thing, available on both the M.2 slots and the X16 slots. It doesn't have USB 4, which I can live without, but it does have a ton of USB 3.2s and a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port. Of course, I was a little concerned about ASUS's reputation as of late. I was given this particular board as a review sample, so I can't afford to be choosy, but I guess if I were buying for myself, I'd probably have looked into an MSI or Gigabyte alternative. For now, the main problem I have is the RGB. There's a distinctly ugly LED logo over the rear I/O and power delivery area that I downloaded the Armory Crate app just so I could turn it off. For RAM, I was kindly provided with a 48GB kit of T-Create DDR5 by Team Group. These guys have plenty of options for RGB RAM, some of it quite ostentatious. However, the T-Create models have nice subtle heat spreaders with no LED lighting at all, just some ventilation holes on the edge, which I'm prepared to bet are primarily there to look cool, which they do. This 6400 CL32 kit is, frankly, a little higher than 7000 series chips can handle, and I'm not even sure the 9000 series will take full advantage of it either, so I'm running it at the tried and tested 6000 CL30. I don't want to make promises because I know suppliers can change, but my kit uses Hynix chips, and so I was able to apply BuildZoid's easy Hynix subtimings to get a nice easy tuned setup for some extra performance. I have a link to this specific kit on Team Group's website in the description. My storage setup currently consists of two NVMe SSDs, one 2TB Crucial drive for work and one 1TB Crucial drive for games, and I haven't upgraded either drive for this build. Yet, anyway. I will soon be adding a third NVMe drive, this time a 4TB unit, but that one is currently hosting the 50 or so games I downloaded for the Goat project. The X670E chipset has a ton of PCIe lanes in addition to those on the CPU, so I can use 3 NVMe drives without compromise. The Asus Strix board comes with some decent sized heat spreaders with pre-applied thermal pads to help provide lower temps and maintain the aesthetics of the motherboard. I'm reusing my old power supply, which is a Fractal Ion 850W gold-rated fully modular unit I bought last year when I thought my old EVGA 750W unit had died. I might look into getting some custom cables at some point, as it only came with double drop PCIe cables, and I'm using 2 of them as single connectors, which is the correct way of using them, but still, looks a bit messy. Which just leaves the graphics card. I'm something of a Sapphire fanboy, but that usually doesn't extend to the more budget-focused Pulse models. They're not bad, but if you're on a budget, you probably shouldn't pay more for one of these over an XFX or Gigabyte or Power Color. However, as this particular Pulse RX 7900 XT has 0 cosmetic LEDs, it's a perfect fit for this minimalist build. Overall, the Radeon RX 7900 XT is a minor upgrade from the 6900 XT I'd been using up till now, as little as 10 to 15% in some cases, but it's got it where it counts. Most importantly for me, it's going to help me in my quest to move to an AV1 workflow in video editing, meaning I'm able to scrub through timelines like this. With that, I've pretty much run out of stuff to talk about. However, I wouldn't leave you nerds without some benchmarks, so here's a few of my personal favourites. I've been building up some track time in Forza Motorsport lately, mainly on my Razer Blade 2020, which is unfortunately a bit underpowered for the task. I'm slowly working my way through the open class tours, winning the D class in a pink Ford Puma before moving into C class in a white Miata. It's not been an optimal experience so far, as all the dynamic settings and resolution that are needed to make this work on an RTX 2060 Max-Q laptop end up making the game look like mush, and still doesn't run at a steady 60. On the desktop, things are dramatically improved. It now runs at a locked 1440p with RT enabled and quality settings manually set to maximum, and while it still doesn't look sharp thanks to TAA and RT noise reduction, it's a big improvement. In the built-in benchmark, it scores nearly 80 FPS with lows of 65, and I'm perfectly happy to play the game locked at 60 FPS. I also think it's pretty cool that an AMD card can play this with RT enabled and still see such usable frame rates, with virtually no drops worth mentioning. As Cyberpunk 2077 is now 4 years old and unlikely to get any more development, I think it's coming close to the time I retire it from my benchmark roster. Despite its age, the RX 7900 XT still isn't able to deliver a smooth 1440 60+ experience with RT Ultra enabled, without also using some kind of upscaling. I tried XeSS, which is undoubtedly a pretty sharp image compared to FSR, but it can do weird things to character hair, so I ended up switching to FSR instead. To be fair, aside from some softness, this isn't a terrible way to play Cyberpunk. With balanced FSR, it seems to average about 68 FPS with lows of 51. Yeah, I know, if I wanted an RT-capable card, I should trade it in for a GeForce, but these days it's actually not impossible to have a decent RT implementation that also performs well on Radeons. Case in point, id actually implemented ray tracing in Doom Eternal post-launch, and while it's only using ray-traced reflections, it's also still possible to play the game at Ultra Nightmare with them enabled and see about 240 FPS. Will I notice? Probably not, except in the occasional cutscene or when I catch sight of a window and start jumping around in front of it. Am I gonna turn them off? Nah, no point. This is more than enough performance to keep me entertained. As an avowed Star Wars nerd, I'm used to forgiving great concepts for having the occasional massive fatal flaw. In the case of Jedi Survivor, it's a widely derided port that will probably never be truly fixed by the developer. But I really like the story and gameplay, so while I can agree with all the criticism it's received and say it's very much justified, I still love it. I started a new save to see if the pain points I found in the past still cause issues on this newer hardware, and sure enough there were a couple of unpleasant drops in early cutscenes. However, the first boss fight goes far better than it did on a Zen 3 CPU with an RDNA 2 GPU, and the game looks so good with RTGI and reflections that I wouldn't want to play without them. I played through the entirety of Starfield last year, and I have to say I enjoyed it. However, I haven't really felt the need to go back and replay it, despite the whole story of the game being centered around the idea of replaying and making different choices. I just can't be bothered right now. Too much work to do and too many games left to play. Maybe I'll go back to it for the DLC. I am pleased to say that, when I do eventually go back to Starfield, this PC can handle it at 1440 maxed out, no upscaling required. Honestly, I don't think I expected to have a PC of this caliber to keep for myself this generation, and I'm immensely grateful to everyone who made it happen, both Scan Computers and Team Group for providing components, as well as Flexispot for sponsoring the video. I don't think I'll be upgrading again for a while yet. Radeon 9000, if that's what they end up calling it, sounds like it will mainly focus on RT performance, which admittedly is right up my alley, but who knows what Team Green will come up with to compete in terms of value. Sorry, couldn't keep a straight face. When I come back off holiday, I'll be working on a few long-awaited projects. I should have the first gen RT video out in the next few weeks, another installment of my Remembering the Titans series after that, and I'm also working on a part 3 to my Switching to AMD series. The final round of the GOAT project is coming this Friday, and I'll do a grand finale sometime in September once I've worked out the maths. In the meantime, thanks again to Flexispot for sponsoring the video, check out their anniversary sale at the link below, and also thanks to Team Group for supplying the memory in the build. Thanks to you for watching, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.